Assalamu alaikum everyone. First of all, a very happy new year to all of you. I hope this year is full of blessings for all of us. So, as the year 2020 ended, I thought that I should do a video on all the books that I managed to read in that year. I love books, I've been reading for as long as I can remember, and I don't think I enjoy anything as much as I enjoy reading. So, let's start. Starting off, the very first book that I read in the year 2020 was this classic, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And it was my first Austen book, and I absolutely fell in love with her writing style. It was such a delightful read. I mean, I guess you can already uh, imagine it from the smile that I have on my face, that how much I enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend you to read it if you haven't done it already. So, the second book that I read was The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. And honestly, this was not an easy read for me, as there were a few parts actually, that I struggled with in understanding. But nevertheless, I would recommend you to read it. So the third book that I read was an autobiography of Muhammad Al Tejani called Then I Was Guided. Unfortunately, I don't have its hard copy, but this book is basically an account of the author's life and basically his journey and his search for knowledge and the truth. And the fourth book that I read was this dystopian novel by Aldous Huxley, Brave New World. And if you want to read only one dystopian book this year, I would recommend this book to you. Just read it. Just read it, and you would know what a masterpiece this book actually is. And my fifth book is this Persian book called Man Sendam, which translates to I'm Alive. This is an autobiography of Iranian war prisoner Masuma Abad, and she was imprisoned during the Iran-Iraq war along with three other women for 3.5 years, and they were not even registered in the International Red Cross Committee. So their families did not know whether they are even alive or not, or they have been killed in the war. So this book really made me think that if she can survive in those conditions, in those horrible conditions that they were kept in, then I guess I can also survive any condition. No matter how hard life gets, I guess I can survive that too. So this was really inspiring. And the next book that I read was The Great Gatsby. I had already watched its movie a few years ago, but I had always wanted to read the book as well. Not really my cup of tea. And the next book that I read, I just get so excited while talking about it, was Matilda by Roald Dahl. I know, a children's book, but I never got to read it in my childhood. I always used to read Persian books when as a kid, so I never read it, but I always wanted to read it. And so I did, and it was such a pleasure reading it. I mean, as you would expect a Roald Dahl's book to be, but I just loved it so much. So if you haven't read it already, no matter how old you are, just read it. Seriously, just read it. I'm sure you would enjoy it as much as you would have done in your childhood, or maybe even more, who knows. So just read it. And my eighth book was Bear Town by Frederick Backman, and it was my first Backman book, and I had read a lot of good reviews about this book, but seriously, I still was not expecting it to be this good. I mean, this book is so close to my heart. I love it so much. The way Backman describes the life of teens and all the hardships associated with it, and it's just so beautiful. It has become one of my favorite books, so I would highly recommend it to you. The next book was The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. It's a short novel about an old fisherman actually, who went to sea for 84 days without catching a fish, and he still does not give up. So as quoted in the book, that a man can be destroyed but not defeated. So I would highly recommend you to read it if you're up for a serious read. And the 10th book that I read was Life is What You Make It by Peter Buffet. And as you might have already guessed from his surname, yes, Peter Buffet is the son of Warren Buffett, one of the world's wealthiest man. So in the book, Peter describes that how one might think that his life might have been full of privileges, but it was not so. He says that the only thing that he inherited from his father was this philosophy that you make your own path in life, and it was through this philosophy that he actually found his passions and pursued those passions and uh, succeeded in life. I would highly recommend you to read this one as well.